welcome to the show this evening. We have with us Mr. Benjamin Graham, aka Big Bout Bing, and his wife, Miss Tanya Graham.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for being on the show this evening.
Thank you for having
It's an
us.
honor. It's an honor.
Thank you.
We love the show.
Thank you. Mr. and Miss Graham are business owners in the community, continuing the legacy of black-owned businesses in the Sweet Auburn district in Atlanta, Georgia. They are the only black convenience store in the Martin Luther King National Historic District that is extremely close to the site. To me, it's always a pleasure shopping and dining at their store, and also it's very inspirational to me. They are an oasis in this neighborhood, and also the store offers charm and personality. Mr. Graham is truly an Atlanta/American dream come true. But before all of this, he has had a powerful experience which he's going to share with us this evening. Mr. Graham, can you tell us where you're originally from?
Originally, I was born in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Hamlet, North Carolina, a little small town.
North Carolina, cool.
Yeah.
Miss Graham, where are you originally from?
I'm actually a Georgia girl.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, wow.
I was born in Rome, Georgia,
Okay.
and we actually lived in a small town called Kingston, Georgia.
Yes.
So probably about 45 minutes from here.
Mr. Graham, most people normally associate persons with a drug addiction or homelessness with where people are at the moment in their life. But can you tell us what your life was like before you had this experience?
Well, before the experience of drug addiction, I was very ambitious.
Yes.
I had this plan to be a millionaire by 30 and a billionaire by 40. Always very hardworking. Spiritually rooted.
Yes.
Those were seeds planted in my spirit early. I was raised in the Holiness Church, and also entrepreneur seeds were planted in my spirit at an early age. I think I made my first $2 when I was 6. I was in a gas station. I saw somebody turn in an empty Coke bottle.
Yes.
And they received, I think it was 10 cents for that bottle.
Yes.
And my eyes got that big.
Wow.
I said, you gave him money for that bottle? And the cashier said, yes. I said, I know where a lot of those are. And I grabbed my red wagon and collected the bottles and made $2. And I think that stuck with me for all my life.
Well, apparently you have achieved that goal of success because we see where you are today. Mm-hmm. So even though certain things probably transpired along the line, it didn't stop where you are now.
No. My life before addiction was very promising.
Yes.
I was honor roll student.
Yes.
I was in love with music. I was in marching band, classical. I played classical music, and I was going to go into the Air Force. I went down and I scored, I think it was a 98 on the ASVAB, and I was going down to sign up for the Air Force, and I received that acceptance letter for the University of Georgia.
Okay.
And so I decided to go to college instead.
Yes.
One of my major mistakes was quitting school.
Okay.
I was just honor roll student that went off to college, and yet still I had 4 quarters to go for a degree, and I quit. I had these dreams of being a famous rapper.
Yes.
I opened up for, I had a song out. I was DJing, and I had a song out, and it was on the radio, and I was DJing at the clubs, and so I was very popular at the time, and I opened up for De La Soul.
Wow.
And so I said, you know what? I'm going to quit school, and I'm gonna be a famous rapper.
Yes.
And so what happened is that I left school. Tanya left, and she came back to Atlanta, and I came back. But I was we kind of ventured off into our own things. You know how it is when you're in school. You have your dreams, and
You're young.
And so I came back to Atlanta to pursue my music dreams, my musical career. It didn't go well. I was famous in Athens, but I came into Atlanta and didn't nobody know me. So I didn't make it. Reality hit. I had to go to work. I had rent to pay. I was always a hard worker.
Yes.
And so I took a job. It was a temporary assignment that became permanent with DeKalb County.
Okay.
I was working in the tag office, and then was promoted to the tax assessor's office. And another thing I had this pattern of quitting before building a solid foundation. I would venture off into something else, and before I really had a solid foundation. I was on a job, and I was always this entrepreneur, so I started a sort of a mail order, kind of like ordering stuff through the mail, and it started doing well. So I said, you know what, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to become a millionaire. That was my plan, and so I quit. And I got into the business, and I partnered with a friend of mine who was a real estate broker at the time, and then the idea we had took off. You know, we had a good income coming in. I moved out to the wealthy part of Atlanta, and so that went well for a few years. Problem was, if you remember the early 90s, the internet was really starting to ramp up. So people decided they wanted to go online rather than to buy stuff through the mail. So I started to lose my business, and I made some terrible decisions, which entered me into the drug world. I was arrested 3 months later for that, and I think a year later I was so depressed. I was never, as you recall earlier, I mentioned this spiritual foundation. So I felt convicted doing anything that had to do with drugs. So I was very depressed. Battling addiction, I was not able to keep a full-time job. So it resulted in my working at day labors, where you go into a room and you go out to work. Well, one of the things they would do is the garbage trucks would come pick you up, and you could work on the back of the garbage trucks. And so I did that for a few years. I loved it. You know, I was on the back, my own little world. And so a few years later, I was on the back, and the guy was backing down a cul-de-sac while I was on the back. And there were three dump trucks at the end of the cul-de-sac, but he only saw two. And he backed me into the third one. And it crushed my pelvis. The only thing, after that injury, the only thing connecting my top and bottom was the spinal cord. The pelvis bone was totally crushed. They did surgery, and they put a bar in my back to connect my legs, to allow my legs to be stable. Very excruciating pain. I tell people today, I said, you know, if you offered me billions of dollars to go through it again, I wouldn't do it. It was just that painful. The physical therapy said all we can do is show you how to get in a wheelchair, but I just didn't want to receive that. I didn't think I would be there for the rest of my life, and through determination I was able to get strength to walk again. And I took that same wheelchair, and I put a cooler in the seat of the wheelchair, and I started walking around town selling snacks and water out of that same wheelchair that I was once in. I was walking around maybe hours every day, you know, miles every day, and I said, you know what, I came up with another idea. I said, why don't I advertise for the businesses that I'm around? So what I would do is put a business flyer on my wheelchair. I had billboards on the side of the wheelchair, and I would advertise for the businesses. And my motto was, if you want to sell it, let me tell it, Big Mouth Ben. And that's how the name Big Mouth Ben. Yeah. And from that point, I got the idea of that if I can get around fast, if I can put all this on a bike. And so I designed this bike and I'm rolling around. But once again, every few months, I would go on this, I'm gonna get it together phase, and it will last for every bit of a couple months, 2-3 months, and then all of a sudden depression would kick in, and I would go back to addiction, active addiction. I designed a bike, and the bike was getting a lot of attention, but I reached a point in my life through my trials and error and giving into addiction. I ended up at my lowest point of my life. I was sleeping under a bridge, 3 blocks from the store. 3 blocks from the store that we own now. And I think what turned everything around was it was a spiritual awakening. It was a conversation with God. And the conversation was as follows. I said, Lord, there has to be more to life than this. I was surviving, but I knew I wanted more out of life. And it was like he was sitting here just like we are. It was like he was sitting beside me, and he said, it is. He says, I promise to love you regardless. He said, if you want to be under the bridge, I'll love you under the bridge. If you want to go to prison, I'll love you in prison. But it's up to you where you want to be loved. And when he told me it was up to me where I wanted to be loved, that's when I became curious.
Yes.
And a lot of times, I guess that's how people end up on drugs, is that they're curious.
Yes.
And so my healing was the same thing as my getting into the addiction. I became curious as to what life would hold for me at this point. If I was to go down that road of recovery, never indulging again, and just with determination, seeking to live my dreams. I started that path. You know, from that point on, I make the bike yellow. The yellow represents the sunshine. I wanted to brighten people's life. I figured that I discovered that you could live a productive life. You could live life drug-free. And I wanted to motivate people to do that, so I made the bike yellow. It was in college that I met Tanya.
Oh, cool.
And it's actually kind of funny because the story that he just told about he was going to the service, I had done the same thing, and we, you know, not knowing each other, but I had actually registered with the Army, had took the test, done well, and I was one night from taking the physical and leaving, and I left to go to University of Georgia.
Oh, wow.
And what a coincidence.
Yes. Yeah, and there's so many connecting points of our life. I met Tanya in college. We dated for a couple of years on off.
A couple of years, and I always like to say what type of person he was in school. He was a very hard worker.
I was on social media and ran into Tanya.
Wow.
Yeah.
And,
right. What a coincidence. And, yeah. Like he was saying, we separated. I came back to Atlanta. I ended up going to Georgia State University. I graduated from there with a biology degree, and so I went on with my life as he went on with his. There was a small bio on Facebook that told a little bit about him, but it didn't do justice to what he'd really been through. We ended up talking on the phone, exchanging numbers and talking on the phone for probably about a week, and we decided to meet downtown. We dated for about a year before we even came to the store.
First, let me tell everybody about the first date.
Okay.
Because this is funny, because I told her everything. You know, I've been crushed on the garbage truck. I was strung out on drugs, and living under the bridge. And you know, in the midst of talking, she says, "I have to use the restroom." And I tell people those were the longest 3 minutes.
I really had to go.
I said those were the longest 3 minutes of my life. I just, you know, I was sitting at the counter and I said, you know what, me and my big mouth. I said she's going out the back window. She's going out the back door, but she came.
Your big mouth.
Yeah.
Really is what sealed it. Because I think I may have been more offended if I heard about it later on.
Yes.
But even though I always told him when I first saw him on Facebook, I just knew based on his work ethic and how he was in school that he would probably be a radio personality, or he'd be, you know, on some major radio, because I knew he loved music.
Yes.
And so it really surprised me. But at the same time, I knew what was in him.
Yes.
You know,
the potential.
Exactly. I knew what was there. So it didn't scare me.
Yes.
It didn't scare me. So that was always something. I always knew the man that he was, not what he had been through.
Yes.
But we have to tell him about how we found the store. That was key.
Oh yeah.
Let's do.
Yeah. We were saying how we found the store. You know, I said I built the route up on the bike, and here I am. I started downtown. I would go down Auburn, go down Boulevard. I would stop at, you know, the parks and apartment complexes and the places that people would hang out and sell snacks. And I happened to be going down Auburn, and something just kind of attracted me to this police sign. There was a little space. It was on the end of the building down on Auburn Avenue. It said for lease, for rent. And I looked in it, and it was like I had a vision.
Yes.
It was like I saw drink machines on the right side. I saw a counter going across the back. I had this vision of a store.
Yes.
And I always like to share that, you know, I called Tanya. I said, Tanya, there's a space down here, and it's for rent. I wonder how much. He said, well, call and find out how much they want for the spot.
And the thing is that he called me. I was actually working out of town,
Yes.
and he called me. He described it in such a way I knew that it was the right place, and I could see the passion, and he could told me all his ideas, and I was like, yeah, let's go for it, and I trusted him in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we called, and Mrs. Robinson is her name, Robinson Realty. She gave us a chance. You know, we filled out the application, and we told her what we wanted to put there, and we went through the process, and we opened the store May of 2014.
Yeah.
Wow.
A year, we outgrew that spot, and we moved into a bigger place.
Some people come in and they will look at the pictures on the wall. They've read the bike, and they can tell that there's some story behind it because they can see the mugshot on the wall. And by us opening up and talking to them about the journey, we've seen a lot of people open up and talk about their past addiction or the addiction that they're currently in. Some of the other things that we do within the store is we provide free bottled water for the homeless, especially with temperatures so high right now. So they could come in throughout the day and get free bottled water. We provide free socks as well, especially when it rains. They come in wet, and so we'll do free socks. And sometimes we actually have clothes here too that we can give out to them. In the wintertime, we do blankets as well. So that's just a couple of the items that we're able to give away, and we'll soon be doing sack lunches. We're getting set up for that.
Thank you all for being such a breath of life into this community. To have people or persons here in the community actually breathing life into people all around makes a huge difference. And when I come in here, the atmosphere is just totally different. It's just I can definitely feel you all's atmosphere, and it's definitely a positive one.
Thank you.
It is well appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you
Trying to
all.
keep it that way.
Thank you. And I must definitely say that for some time now, probably a year and some months of coming to this store, when I first came to the store, I came in, purchased a few items, left back out. But then the second and the third time came in, I started seeing bits and pieces of information around. And I was like, wow, this man has a story, and then I was looking at it and how this store has more meaning to it, and it even has inspired me in many ways.
We actually started a nonprofit, a 501c3 called Motivation Forward.
Yes.
And so this nonprofit is geared to assisting individuals dealing with homelessness and addiction to take steps to get off the street.
Yes.
And so what we try to do is use our story, Vince's training and his experience to kind of coach people through steps that they need to take.
You remember I told you about the living my dream as a rapper? And
Yes, sir.
Often enough I came back. I had an opportunity to jump back into the music. I love music. There was a critic that reviewed I have an EP out now. So what I do is motivational hip hop. But he has helped me to confirm my genre of music, and he called it hope hop.
Oh, cool.
So we're now, I'm Big Mouth Ben, I'm a motivational entertainer, and I am the engineer of Hope Hop.
That's
awesome.
And so Hope Hop is actually spiritual positive hip hop that gives you hope. We have a song, one of the singles we released was Act Like It. If you really want success, you better act like it, and the kids in the schools were singing it. We shot the video, and we had some people come in, some of the youth dance group, and they were inspired. They went back to school. So we recently released Thank You Lord. That was another single, and Thank You Lord was picked up. It has been accepted for a radio station in Nevada.
Okay.
And so it'll be starting off with about 14 spins a week, and so that's a great thing to accomplish.
Yes, Mr. Graham, you have recently released a book. Can you tell us about it?
Well, it's in editing. My wife is going back over it.
Yeah.
She's the smart one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We'll send it through another editor, a professional editor, as far as format. And it should be out. We're shooting for maybe January 2017. The book should be ready.
Yes, sir.
One of our mottos is that, and you'll see that on the bike, when you see the bike outside the store, you'll see an orange, you know those construction signs, those diamond-shaped signs?
Yes.
You'll see an orange construction sign, and it would say, "Dreams ahead, proceed with determination."
Yes.
And so that's basically what we want the community to do. The story is, you know, all this happened on Auburn Avenue, so actually the story is I went from sleeping under a bridge on Auburn Avenue to owning a convenience store 3 blocks from that same bridge along with my lovely wife.
That's powerful. It's very.
Yeah.
Can you all share with us links to your business, links to the store, the music, and also the outreach?
Okay.
Okay. Well, for me, for Big Mouth Bend, it's just Big Mouth Bend. Everything is Big Mouth Bend. You can just Google Big Mouth Bend and everything will come up. And the music, all the videos, any future performances, any speaking engagements, those will pop right up. So Big Mouth Bend. Facebook is Benjamin Graham.
And my Facebook is Tanya Graham, and I think you could probably look me up through Mrs. Big Mouth Ben as well. I should come up. And then as far as our nonprofit, we're at motivationforward.org. And then our store is bigmouthbenstores.com.
Mr. Graham, could you actually leave some words of encouragement to the audience, or if you'd like to as well, Ms. Graham?
Yeah, I would like to share with the audience that, and I tell people about my conversation with God, and I want everybody to really think about that. God promises to love us and take care of us, but it's essentially up to us where He does that at. He's going to love you wherever you want to be. And so with that being said, you have to, I would encourage you to never give up, to pursue your dreams, work hard. You know, I would tell people determination is the key to overcoming. God is there. God is, you know, my life, I have to give Him credit for where I'm at. But like I say, if anyone's listening that's struggling, have faith, become determined and realize that you can overcome and you can do what you put your mind to. Thanks, sweetie.
I would like to say from my point of view in learning as I went along about addiction and homelessness, I encourage people to not judge people on the surface. If I hadn't stopped and really taken in what God had put on the inside of who is now my husband, I would have missed out on a great opportunity on not only being in a wonderful marriage with him, but also in being able to serve in an area that I had no experience in. And so I just encourage people, if you're dealing with someone that has some type of issue, whether it's addiction or not, that you do not judge on the surface, but you try to really get to know people from the heart and from the spirit. We miss out on a lot of great relationships and friendships because we judge too quickly.
Well, thank you all so much again for the wonderful experience that you all have shared with us, and thanks again for what you all are doing for many people's lives and for my life. You really don't realize sometimes the inspiration you are to many around you.
Awesome.
And, yes, most definitely. And thank you all for being on the show.
Okay.
And thank you all. Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having us.
And everyone, thanks again for viewing the show, and please tune in next time. Thanks, and please have a great evening.
And if you want success, you better act like it. I really want success, so I act like it. I'm trying to see $1 million, so I act like it. I know I gotta make it, so I act like it. Act like it. Act like it. If you really want success, you better act like it. You're trying to see $1 million, better act like it. You wanna be a boss, better act like it. Act like it. Act like it. They say you won't make it, man, they talking crazy. They say you ain't